Hi, I'm Dave Johnson, Carillonneur House of Hope. I've held the position since 1993. It came as a surprise. It's not the kind of thing that most of us who take up this interesting instrument have contemplated doing, but my predecessor had resigned. The church was needing to find someone new. They asked me if I might consider doing it. I was fresh from an organ job that I had just left, and I said I'll give it a shot. People often ask, as one of the most basic questions, how many stairs do you have to climb to get up here? The tower was built when the church was built, 1912, dedicated 1914. And Ralph Adams Cram, the architect, left plenty of room for bells should the church ever decide to install them, which they did in 1923. They turned out to be dreadful bells. And despite efforts at retuning made by a foundry called Manili in New York, these bells, which had been cast in Belgium, were ultimately gradually discarded. First in 1951, about half of them, when some new Picard bells cast in France, and additional bells cast by a man named Arthur Bigelow, who played bells at Princeton at that time, and cast bells of his own in his basement and in his garage. And then again in 1959, when almost all the remaining initial bells were taken out, this time replaced by more Bigelow bells and by Dutch bells from the foundry of Petit and Fritzen in the Netherlands. So 48 bells as of 1987 were refreshingly wonderful. And then in 1992, when the entire tower, as a matter of fact, was tuck-pointed, a restoration was done, work was done on the Carillon, a complete renovation of the instrument was done, a final 49th bell was added. It was a low C sharp, which had never been there up to that point. So now we have 49 bells, C to C, over 4 octaves, fully chromatic. So here we are at the practice room. People often say when they get this far, are you going to play the bells now? And I say, no, this is where I practice. This is where I learn music, so I'm not disturbing the neighbors. This keyboard, this practice keyboard, which was made by Rick Watson, who is himself a bell founder and a technician, was created in 1992 at the same time as the renovation I mentioned just a moment ago. And so the pedal part of the instrument covers these 2 octaves, again C to C, fully chromatic, in other words, no notes missing. But the difference between upstairs and here is that when I play here, we are hitting bars and tubes, rather like a xylophone. But it keeps the sound internal, and we're not disturbing people in the outside. If we take a bit of Mozart. So we're leaving the practice room now and beginning our climb up the circular stairs to the playing cabin. The people notice that there are rungs in the bricks on the outer edge of the tower. They say, is that how they used to climb the tower? No, those were there to get to the top before there were ever bells. These stairs have been here since 1923 when the bells were installed. Most people who come up have never climbed that many circular stairs at once. This wonderful room was another part of the renovation of 1992. Prior to that time, the cabin in this same position was nonetheless tiny. There was no room for anyone else to stand in it to observe what was going on. You had to peek through a window at one side or the other. But in addition to building the practice room, which we've just seen, they built this room as well. And here is the identical keyboard, only now we've got an instrument that's playing real bells. The carillon is a musical instrument, says the Guild of Carillonneurs, consisting of at least 2 octaves of carillon bells arranged in chromatic series and played from a keyboard, permitting control of expression through variation of touch. A carillon bell is a cast bronze, cup-shaped bell whose partial tones are in such harmonious relationship to each other as to permit many such bells to be sounded together in various chords with harmonious and concordant effect. Now there's some long words there, but what it basically comes down to is these are real bells being played by a real person on an instrument that has real connections running all the way from the key to the bell. So that when you strike a key, Nothing intervenes automatically between you and the bell. The key pulls a wire, the wire turns a rod, the rod pulls another wire toward it, and that wire is attached to a clapper which strikes the bell. A little bit from the Ash Grove, a Welsh folk song. As you can see as we're going, the technique is always to use slightly closed fists, not so tight that they'll cramp. And so you're hitting the keys, striking the keys with the side of your hand. You're playing and preparing to do so in this manner loudly, always releasing immediately, or preparing for a more gentle sound. Here's another example, played just a brief bit, of a prelude written by Ron Barnes, who was also Carillonneur at the University of Kansas. Some years ago, he arranged a series of pieces, original compositions, based upon melodies that emerged out of Appalachia in the 19th century. This prelude happens to be called Land Beyond the Clouds. It's a spiritual. I'll play just a bit of it.